Today, we're going to dive into how one single, seemingly simple rule about where to place a scroll on a doorpost can explode into this huge, fascinating debate. It's about divine protection, sure, but it's also about the incredible, mind-bending precision of ancient legal thought. So, let's jump right in.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the rule itself and the two totally different reasons behind it. Then, we're going to explore this beautiful idea of the divine sentinel. After that, things get tricky with a specific placement problem, and we'll watch the rabbis play detective hunting for proof. And finally, we'll see how the whole argument gets resolved with a really surprising twist.
So our whole story kicks off with this one little instruction from a sage named Rava. You know, it seems straightforward enough, but it's what sets the entire stage for this amazing discussion. The rule is pretty simple. You take the mezuzah, that's the little scroll with verses from the Torah, and you place it on the doorpost, specifically within the part that's closest to the outside, about a hand's width from the edge. Easy enough, right? Well, as soon as that rule is on the table, the text does what it always does. It asks the most important question of all, why? Why that specific spot? And honestly, that one question is what drives this entire conversation.
And immediately, we get two very different answers. On one side, you have the rabbis, who give this very practical, human-focused reason. They say, you put it there so it's the very first thing you encounter when you walk in the door. But then you have Rav Chanina, and he offers something way more mystical. He says, no, you put it on the outermost edge so its spiritual protection can radiate and cover the entire house, right from the boundary.
Okay, let's follow that second idea for a minute, Rav Chanina's idea. Because, wow, it leads to one of the most powerful and just beautiful analogies in the entire text.
Get this. This quote just completely flips our whole understanding of power on its head. Rabbi Hanina says, think about a human king. He's inside his palace, safe, and his guards are all standing outside protecting him. But with God, the whole thing is inverted. We, his servants, we're the ones sitting safely inside our homes, and he is the one standing guard for us on the outside. The mezuzah then becomes the symbol of that divine guard, that sentinel.
And of course, they don't just leave it at that. They bring in a verse from Psalms to back it up, one that describes God as your keeper, right there on your right hand, an external, ever-present protector. It's a perfect match for the mezuzah on the right side of your door.
So, we've got this beautiful, profound spiritual concept. But this is the Talmud we're talking about. So of course, the discussion immediately pivots to a very specific nitty-gritty what if. This is where we see how these huge ideas get tested against the tiny details of the law. Okay, before we go any further, there's a key term you gotta know, pasul. It basically means unfit or invalid. In Jewish law, if you don't do a commandment the right way, the thing you're using can be considered pasul. It just doesn't count.
And here's the new curveball. The text says that if you carve out a space in your doorpost, a full handbreadth deep, and put the mezuzah in there, it's unfit. The commandment isn't fulfilled. So why? And more importantly, where's the proof for this new rule?
So the hunt is on. You see, you can't just introduce a new ruling like that. It has to be supported by an older, more authoritative source. The whole process demands evidence.
And they find what looks like the perfect piece of evidence. It's a baraita, which is a teaching from an earlier time, and it seems to say exactly what they're looking for. It says if a mezuzah is in a spot a handbreadth deep, you need another mezuzah. Now that seems to imply the first one is invalid, right?
So it looks like a slam dunk. The language seems to perfectly support the idea that a mezuzah that's set too deep is totally unfit. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. In the world of Talmudic analysis, a perfect-looking proof is usually just where the real investigation begins.
All right, let's get to the final stage. This is where the logic takes this brilliant, completely unexpected turn and challenges its own best evidence.
So, in a classic move, the Gemara, the main text we're in, deflects its own proof. It basically says, hold on, that earlier teaching, that baraita, it's not actually talking about a recessed mezuzah at all. Turns out it's describing a completely different and very specific kind of doorway.
So what's really going on here? Well, the argument is that the baraita is talking about a doorway that is incredibly thick, at least a hand's breadth. And a doorway that thick is legally considered to have two separate entrances, one on the outer edge and another on the inner edge. It's not about one mezuzah being invalid. It's that you have what amounts to two doorways, and each one needs its own valid mezuzah.
Okay, but hold on a second.
If that proof text was only talking about this one specific case of a super thick doorway, why is it phrased in a way that sounds like it's stating two different laws? It feels kind of redundant, doesn't it?
And the resolution is it's so elegant. The text explains that the Baraita isn't stating two separate rules at all. It's stating one rule, and then the second part of the sentence is just explaining the first part. Think of it like this. The text says you need a second mezuzah in a certain situation, and then it immediately asks and answers its own question. What situation is that? It's a situation of an entrance behind the door. It's one single incredibly precise legal statement.
So what a journey, right? We started with this one tiny rule about placement and discovered these two deep layers of meaning, one practical, one spiritual. We saw the mezuzah get transformed into this amazing symbol of a divine guardian. And maybe most impressively, we saw how this text weaves together these huge ideas with an almost surgical, logical precision, where every single word matters.
And all this really leaves us with one final big thought. How can one little, everyday object hold so much? How can it contain such exact, precise law on the one hand and such vast, infinite meaning on the other? It's a question that really gets to the core of how rituals and laws can shape our entire view of the world.